Good morning. Happy Friday. Mrs. O'Brien reporting for class. Today we're going to read a folktale. A folktale is a story that is told by mouth from one person to another, and it traditionally or usually has like a moral at the end, or like a story to be told at the end. So, sorry. I actually just trucked up this mountain and then started recording immediately. Whew. Didn't take a moment to catch my breath. All right, so this particular folktale, you should know a couple of things about before we begin. The first is, if you take a look at paragraph 1, at the end of the first sentence, it uses the word fire, and fire is capitalized. And the reason why fire is capitalized here, as well as words like coyote, what are the other ones? The cougar, the fox, and the squirrel. So those words, they're capitalized even though they're not names. And there also are names regarding the characters that are the three sisters that are not capitalized. So this is my take on why. The reason why we capitalize names is because they represent a being. In this story, the beings, the characters are fire, the coyote, the squirrel, the cougar, the fox, and I can't remember if I already said squirrel. The people, the three evil sisters, they're referred to as the skookums. Skookum is a word that means great or with a lot of significance. I know this is a lot, right? Just bear with me. And it comes from the Pacific Northwest. All right, so hold up, what? Think of California. All right, can you picture where California is? I wish so much that I had the smart board right here. I got to figure that out. Think of California. California is on the Pacific, okay? So that's where we get Pacific. And California is in the west, but now we got to go north. We've got to go up. So up from California is Oregon, and then you've got Washington. Washington, like where Miss Den is from, Washington, that area, that is the Pacific because it's on the Pacific Ocean, and it's in the northwest of the United States. So this whole folktale came from the Pacific Northwest, and that's why skookums is a word that's used here, because that's where that came from. All right, one more thing, right? The purpose of this folktale, and the reason why I'm telling you now is because I want you to know the ending, sort of, so that it's easier to follow. The purpose of this is that this is supposed to be, and it's not really, but this is the folktale version. This is the story version of how these animals came to have some of the markings they have. Like, you ever notice how a squirrel's tail is kind of curved, and how a fox has a black tip on its tail? So these are like the story versions, but like not science, as to why these animals have these markings. Whoa, ready? Coyote and Fire, a folktale from the Pacific Northwest by D.M. Souza. Long ago, when the world was young, people did not have fire. They ate their meat and salmon raw. When cold winds blew or snow covered the ground, they could not warm their houses. Only the skookums had fire. Right? It's not about the people. Look at that sentence if you're looking at your packet with me, and you should be. Fire. That is the being here. That's what we're going after. These three evil sisters, the skookums, lived high on a mountain and would not share with anyone. They kept fire to themselves. One icy cold winter, the people met Coyote on the road. "Please, Coyote," they begged. Capture Fire from the Skookums or we will freeze. I will do what I can, he said. That night, Coyote climbed the snow-covered mountain where the Skookums lived. When he reached the top, he spotted fire in the distance. Moving closer, he saw one of the Skookums sitting in front of a house, warming himself by fire. Not the fire, because it's the idea of it. For a long time, Coyote watched until the Skookum went to the door and called, "Sister, sister, get up. It's your turn to guard fire." The second sister appeared and took her place. After a while, she called the third sister. Coyote could hear the sleepy one yawning and groaning loudly inside. "She is taking so long to come out. Maybe I could seize fire now," Coyote whispered to himself. "But the Skookums are swift. They would surely catch me before I got very far. I must think of a good plan." Coyote thought and thought, but his mind was foggy. So he asked his sisters, the 3 huckleberries who lived in his stomach. Huckleberries are like a wild blueberry. They were wise, these huckleberries that lived in his stomach. They would surely know what to do. And they did. Carefully, Coyote listened to their plan. Then he went back down the mountain and called together all the animals to tell them what to do. The next evening, Coyote trudged up the mountain again. Patiently, he waited while the first 2 Skookums took their turn in front of fire. When the last sister was called, again only yawns and groans drifted outside. Quick as an arrow, Coyote raced into the open, seized or took a burning stick, and ran across the snowy field. "Ah, you thief!" 2 Skookums began chasing Coyote and throwing ice and snow at him. Coyote's legs moved faster and faster. His feet barely touched the ground. Still, the Skookums came closer. He could feel their fiery breath on fur, meaning that's how close they were. One of the Skookums grabbed the tip of his tail. Her hot hand burned it black. Even today, all coyotes have black tips on their tails. So you see how the whole story came to, that's why the coyote has a black tip on its tail. It's like an entertaining way of going about it. That's what we do when we don't know facts. In fact, this totally reminds me of the dragons and the story about how people didn't know what they were, so they called them like scary monsters. Good connection there. At least Coyote reached a thick of shrubs and fell to the ground exhausted. At last, Coyote reached a thicket of shrubs and fell to the ground, exhausted. And just at that moment, Cougar jumped off, seizing the burning stick, and disappeared down the mountainside. For a minute, the Skookums were confused, but soon they were racing after Cougar. When Cougar reached a grove of trees, Fox was waiting. She took the burning stick and ran until she came to a tall tree. There, Squirrel grabbed the flaming torch, raced up the trunk, and jumped from branch to branch. She leapt along even as the flickering flame burned a black spot on the back of her neck, and her tail curled forward. Even today, squirrels have black spots on their necks, and their tails curl forward. And I like that. At the forest's edge, the Skookums almost caught up with Squirrel. That's when Antelope took the stick of fire, sped across the meadow, and handed it to Deer. One animal after another passed fire on, keeping it just out of reach of the Skookums, until it became a tiny, hot coal. I think I need to go look at a picture of an antelope now and see what the marking is on the antelope that brought that up. Be well.